Thank you to Darren from InterSystems for requesting me to present today to 20 people. I think there's like about 140 people here, so I hope I do it justice to the 140 people, and my topic really is about transformation, digital transformation, and our journey at Bendigo Health. I would like to acknowledge that we have two of my colleagues here, Peter Faulkner, our Chief Executive Officer, and Elise Adam, who is our project manager for the electronic medical record or electronic patient record project. We have been here for about 5 or 6 days. We attended the HIMSS 2019 APAC conference, and we've had an opportunity to visit some of the more popular markets in Bangkok. And on Sunday we were out at the market and we saw some lion dancing, and in fact that then suggested to us that we probably should explain to you that Bendigo is a dragon city, and we have 3 dragons. The first dragon is Lung, which is the oldest imperial dragon in the world. It was built in 1890. It was about 75 metres long, and just retired recently in about early 1990, I think, and has been sleeping and just wakes up about every 10 years and comes out around about Easter time. It's been replaced by Sun Lung. He's about 100 metres long and parades through our town again every Easter. And now we've got Dai Gum Lung, who is now the longest imperial dragon in the world. 150 metres, takes over 300 people to carry the dragon through the city. It's quite a sight as it snakes its way. About 100,000 people watch the parade. But we're not just known for dragons, we're also known for gold. And if people like dragons and gold, I suggest you come to Bendigo, because in the last 3 years there's been over 750,000 ounces of gold poured out of one mine. In fact, it's only about 5 kilometres from my farm, so I'm hoping that it's coming this way and I'll be able to sell out and retire fairly quickly. But in any instance, Bendigo, we've been on a journey for probably 10 years. We started looking at building a digital hospital about 2007, and it's now been open for 2.5 years. And we've had, I think, a lot when we talk about digital transformation. I look at it from a very different perspective, I think, from a lot of people in the room. And if there are CIOs in the room, I hope I can at least give you justice around I'm sharing your pain, and you can share some of my pain when we start that journey. So I'll be talking from a personal viewpoint about transformation, and I'll talk from our build viewpoint and try and put that together and bring home some parting words. All the presenters today have touched on just about everything that I want to touch on as well. The jewel in the crown for us at Bendigo is our new hospital, and there's a photo there of it. I think that when you start the journey for digital transformation, it's not just around an electronic medical record. We've heard today that it's more than just in the acute setting, it's also outside of the 4 brick walls. But it's important from my perspective that when we start on this journey, that whatever we build inside there has the capacity to expand out, the capacity to expand into the broader community. And in fact, Bendigo, if you're not familiar with Australia, we're down the bottom of the map in the orange there, and if we explode that into Victoria, this pink region is the Loddon Mallee region, where we have another 17 hospitals that are all independent, all public hospitals, all run by an independent CEO and all run by a board. We join that together and we form an alliance called the Loddon Mallee Rural Health Alliance, and part of my role is to have regional responsibilities for the CIO, as the CIO. So very quickly, we're about a population of 350,000 people. It's about a 5-hour drive from the top of the map to the bottom of our, there, right through there. We have over 120 sites. We're a community, acute, cancer care, aged residential care, dentistry. We're a very broad platform of services, so we're not just a specialist service. And we have approximately 760 beds, of which around about 390, 400 acute inpatient, 72 psych inpatient beds, 300 aged care residential beds. We do about 60,000 ED admissions a year. Inside a new hospital, we've got 11 theatres, etc. One of the key aspects here, we talk about patient experience, and we're big on patient centricity, but really what patients want at our place is car parks. And we have about 1,250 car parks for people when, in fact, walking here, we were visiting a couple of other areas during the early part of the week, and I don't think parking is an issue here. Is anyone got parking an issue here anyway? I think it might be. And we're also a teaching hospital. We've got about 1,800 nurses and a complement of, say, 2,500 FTE. So from a CIO perspective, we've been building a world-class hospital. We received $650 million from the government to build a greenfield, pretty much acute focus, one site only, and it opened in January 2017. But from my viewpoint, and being a CIO, you generally get to work in brownfield buildings. So in other words, you're retrospective. If you're running cable into buildings that have been built 40, 50, 60, in some cases 80 years old. And it's very time consuming, it's very expensive to be able to bring even a wireless technology into those areas. So for me personally, this was a great opportunity. Started that in about 2007, and was lucky enough to be able to visit a number of digital sites across the world. And I remember very clearly my first site that I visited was in Trondheim, Norway. And they were clearly in 2007 one of the most technology advanced hospitals going around. And there was quite a few ideas that we took away from that to put into our hospital. And of course, building a hospital, it's a 3-4 year build. So you're looking at technology back 3 or 4 years early, and then when the trick is when you open, you've got that last six months to 3 months to put the technology in because you want to get the latest technology. And then by then, technology has already been superseded. So for me personally, this is like a once in a lifetime new beauty. This is the best thing you could ever get. But you know, it's a risky game. Whilst it's a CIO dream and it's very inspiring, opportunity to make your mark, this is going to be it. It's in my hometown. At the time, there's 3 or 4 hospitals being built across the nation that had significant problems. They were late, they were over budget. Integration was a significant problem. And we talked earlier about interoperability. So we had this environment of bad press. We're building under a private-public partnership, which means that we've got a builder, we've got the government who's really the client, and we've got the end customer, which is really ourselves, the hospital. So it's a 3-way game. And the builder is always building to get in and out as quickly as they can. The client, the government, is trying to ensure that we get value for money and that they meet the contract. And we're the customer, we're at the end of the queue, and we're saying, but what about this, but what about that? And it becomes a fairly difficult environment to work in sometimes, particularly when you want to push the boundaries in terms of technology. So I see it as a high-risk game. And the fear that you have, a lot of people used to ask me, you know, what keeps you awake at night? And I used to say that it was the telephone systems, because in a traditional hospital environment, you didn't have a lot of IT, if you like, didn't have a lot of clinical systems, and those systems weren't real time and they weren't dependent upon all the other systems. So probably the most major, if you lost all your telephone systems, then that was going to be pretty bad. So if you ask me today what keeps me awake, I'd say I don't sleep because everything is so real-time and so complex now that every aspect of our work with inside the hospital is connected in some way or another in a chain and depends upon another link in the chain and expands outside the bricks and the mortar of the hospital to the other service areas that we got, which then expands out to the other region of where we've got connectivity into 16 or 17 other hospitals. So you go through this fear of failure and will it work? It hasn't worked over there. Have we covered our tracks enough? And you lose a little bit of control because you've got a builder that has an IT expert. You have the government that have consultant experts. And you have us, and we're experts. So you've got all these experts and we're trying to build a digital hospital and introduce change into the system. And I mentioned that it's career defining, so it could be your last job. Luckily I'm getting old, so I can ride off on my horse and probably retire. But I would like to leave a legacy, and I think everybody likes to leave a legacy. So you only get one chance at this. But I mean, once you get over that, you've got to focus, and you need to start to think about you're building something here for the next 30 to 50 years. And it's not just about a clinical system, multiple clinical systems. It's about defining what you want for your community, however big that community is. And in our instance, 350,000 people across 25% of Victoria, a lot of gap, and everybody from the young right through to the aged and to the elderly. We want to build a world-class hospital. We wanted to build a hospital that will deliver that in the next 30 to 50 years. So we're all about building capacity, all about ensuring that our platforms are correct. So as we can leverage anything that an InterSystems or another vendor can give to us, we'll be able to leverage that almost immediately and with little retrofit, if you like, in terms of our technology. It is interesting though, when I think about this and we talk about transformation, who are we transforming? You know, who uses the EMR the most? Is it the nurse? Is it the doctor? Are we transforming the patient? And don't forget, we've got a whole range of legacy systems. Are we transforming the legacy systems at the same time as we're transforming the clinical systems? And then what do we need? We need a lot of things. We need good clinical systems. We need good security. We need collaboration. We need to be able to integrate with our systems. We need to be able to have interoperability with all of our systems. And we need to be able to share data. And it's okay to stand here and say that we actually want to do all that, but to actually do it is quite difficult. It is complex, it is hard, and it is costly. And it does take a lot of time. However, fortunately, if you're building a greenfield site and you take those into consideration when you start to build, it makes it a lot easier. So we built a roadmap. We've really changed it from a project to a journey. So these things are long-term, and a relationship that you have with your vendor should be long-term. And I'd like to hear the comments today from InterSystems that it really is a partnership and they're in it for the long haul. But we've got to look at the big picture as well. And within an Australian context, we have a national context of a strategy, the Australian Digital Health Authority. We have a Victorian statewide strategy. We have a regional strategy, which is that part there. And then we create our own strategy, if you like, for the agency. And it's got to be built on what I would say are some key core principles around how we build technology and how we build systems for the longevity and for the future. And without going to any of those, there's 7 or 8 key pillars there that we believe are the pillars for our digital transformation phase, and I'll concentrate on 3 or 4 of those in a moment. So that was our plan, and people say, okay, well let's go to it. And invariably, you've got to do it in your own resource or very little additional resource. And there's a fair amount of pressure. And I think for all the CEOs that are in the room today, it's about understanding and getting a clear view of where you want to go, and then probably participating and talking to a whole range of other people that have been on that journey, because the lessons learned are many, and yet for some reason in health, particularly in Australian context, we don't really share those lessons learnt very well. So we have a number of EMR rollouts across nationally and statewide, and very rarely do we get together to talk about those sorts of lessons learned. Some of the speakers earlier today talked about bimodal, and this is really important for us. As a CIO, we're still running a hospital. I'm still running a whole range of services, and yet you want me to transform our business and build new platforms and put in new systems and still run all the old. So what do we do about our legacy systems, and how do we actually bring those legacy systems into the platform that we really do want to move our service forward? And as I mentioned, it's not just clinical, it's back office. So what are we doing about our HR systems and our financial systems? Are they keeping pace with the clinical systems that we're putting in? What's driving what? Is we've got the cart before the horse, or do we have a clear strategy, I guess? And if we talk about ICT and all the enablers, so we don't talk about the technology, but we talk about the enablers, and all those enablers like video conferencing, voice over IP, robotic process information, or in that instance, RPM for community remote management of technology. Key, standardisation. We don't want variation. We want to standardise, and we force that standard by ensuring that everybody that wants to play in a digital hospital space sticks to standards. And those standards could be, certainly in the future, FHIR, HTML, XML, HL7, etc. But it is interesting when we look at HL7, there are so many derivatives and versions of HL7 that it's almost blurred as to which version of HL7 do you want to use. So the focus is about building capacity and growing and leveraging everything that we've got. It's about developing the right architects, and it gives you a really good opportunity now when you build a brand new hospital to look at your enterprise architectures, to look at data, security, your technology, to look at information management. And I sat through 3 days of a lot of talk about AI, machine learning, and it's there, of course it is, but you must have secure, clear, good quality data. And if you don't have that, and you've got data that is dirty, if you like, then it doesn't really matter whether you're doing spreadsheeting or predictive modelling or AI, you're not going to get the right results that you want. So a very sound information management plan, managed with security, is a must. We're building an innovation culture slowly within our organisation. I'll pick up on that in a moment, but we have our innovation hub, and it was really heartening to listen to Deloitte's before to talk about where startups sit and the closeness that you should be working as an agent in service delivery with the startup community and the accelerator community. And then somehow, I don't know, it comes back to me or to my group or to a small team that says, you got to put all that together and glue it together, and it's got to be done next week. So of course we actually want to do something for the consumer, the patient, and that's what we're here for. We hear about patient care, patient centricity, patient experience. And whilst the next slide is pretty busy, this is a framework that I start to work to, and there are a number of frameworks in HIMSS. This is the patient experience and engagement framework. And it really just says it, over here you start off really slow and you keep it and inform me. And as you move through the maturity, you end up with a patient engagement framework around the whole community of the services that you provide. So when we look at portals are back about here somewhere. And when you move up, right up the value chain, right to the end, go to, I think it's, you'll find that somewhere on HIMSS, and have a read of that. In fact, HIMSS do, they do have a clinical analytics framework, and they do have the MRAM framework. And they also have an infrastructure, InfraRAM framework. I'm pleased to say that in partnership with Cisco and ourselves, we were number one. We started that framework at Bendigo a long time ago. It expanded into the eastern coast of Australia, and Cisco then did more work on that and then delivered it to HIMSS, and now it's a framework within the HIMSS. So our journey was to build a smart hospital with a whole range of principles for the building design as well as for the ICT. And we have a number of leadership roles in that are driving the change and the transformation, and none other from our CEO down, my role. We have a Chief Medical Information Officer, we have a Chief Nurse Medical Information Officer, and we have a Chief Allied Health Information Officer role. And as the leadership group with our executive group, it's up to us to change the culture and behaviours of how we want to work and move forward into a really paper-light environment for all of our services that we provide, whether it be for mental health or whether it be for community health or in the acute sector. We do real-time capture of patient data. So batches out used to be that we would be able to do data entry for whatever happened the night before or the next day. And given now that our hospital is a digital hospital or a real-time hospital, we can't do that anymore. So we are truly a real-time hospital. Key here, I think, is we decided within our ICT that we would concentrate on EMR infrastructure, interoperability, integration, unified communications. Unified communications is about social collaboration. It's about how we message our nurses. It's about how we actually message and send messages between third-party providers in the hospital, such as subcontractors. We have a range of subcontractors, facilities managers, food services, security, that are all connected to our network, that are all taking message feeds out of all of our systems that go back out to their particular areas. So when we have patient entertainment with a menu, real-time menu ordering system, we're delivering those messages real-time into the food services area for the meals to be delivered at the appropriate time. Also key here is engaging with our community. When you're in regional towns, we think that our community is a very strong and vibrant community, and that you can walk down the street and you don't know everybody, but you certainly get to know quite a few people, a lot of the business people. And it's important for us to have that community engagement, which then takes us and extends us beyond the four walls of the hospital, and starts to look at embracing what smart cities could be really about and how health fits into smart cities. So the four pillars for our smart health were around unified comms, the EMR, real-time tracking services, messaging services, and our infrastructure. Building a medical grade network, resilience, reliability, building the opportunity to do mobility by the bedside, 100% Wi-Fi. We're in the lift wells, we're in the lift, we're in the stairwells. We splash out outside the hospital. We can geo-fence if we want to, and we can then start to do smart things like when patients or carers come into the hospital, we have that ability to push information to them if that's what we want to do. No more than just saying that on the Gartner scale, real-time health services, you start off at level 1 and you move to level 4. We've probably got bits and pieces of that all the way through, but it's important that, again, not losing scope, got my eye on the ball, and that we really do want to be up in here within the next probably 3 to 4 years. We are looking at real-time orchestration within our ICT service delivery, and you can't run a digital hospital, or you can't deliver digital transformation unless you really do look at the way ICT services and operations are delivered inside your hospital. So traditional models are siloed models of ICT, systems people, applications people, help desk people, support people. We need to rethink that, because with the more transformation it takes, the help desk will get hit with a lot more requests. So you've got to get smart about that. You've got to get orchestration tools. And we're looking at self-service portals 24/7. So it's not just about the end user, but it's about organising your ICT operations to come on board as well. That really just says that we've got, again, bimodal. We've got the prevailing state. We're switching to a digital state. We're continuing to upgrade our systems. And there's a whole range of background information that, as an ICT operating shop, that we've got to consider as opposed to the clinical side of things. So post-build, where are we? We've got a very smart hospital. We've got automated guided vehicles. We've got real-time location services. We track assets. We've got 2 duress systems. We've got 2 different real nurse call systems. We have a very complex integration platform. We have an integration engine that's in the cloud. It's fully DR'd. It's been running in the cloud for 2.5 years. All of our HL7 messagings go into the cloud and then into a data lake. We have about 70 applications that are connected to it, and we run a hybrid cloud and on-prem applications. We talked about our workforce earlier, and we've identified that it's very important to get our nurses, in fact our whole workforce, aware of data informatics. We've trained everyone from our legal counsel through to directors, clinical directors, through to nurses, and a couple of ICT staff. We now have 40 health informaticians that are qualified through the Australian certification scheme for informatics. And that's all about ensuring that you understand why you collect data, you understand the need for data. So it's when we want to do clinical analytics and when you want to do the AI, machine learning, that the need for data is understood and why we actually need it to be clean. I mentioned before an innovation hub. We've just started this. This is new. We've got a startup accelerator program running inside our hospital, and that's about bringing startups to the hospital and about putting them in contact with on-site clinicians and having those clinicians assist and mentor those startups and work very closely with those. So we'll have 10 startups starting early next year. We've got a clinical innovation entrepreneur. We'll have 6 clinical innovation fellows, and we'll have a startup in residence program. And this is again being on that forefront, trying to drive transformational change within inside our organisation. We do research, we do datathons and we do hackathons. Last year we just ran a very successful datathon, 120 participants. We had 10 individual data sets joined together in the cloud, and we let loose some data scientists, some academics, clinicians, to try and solve various problems or pose or answers to some of the questions that were posed through the hackathon, datathon. We're running another one in the next couple of months around cancer. So we have strong partnerships with university, and we do research, and as recent as yesterday we were announced as the only hospital in a consortia inside Australia for a $36 million research program, the Australian Research Council, around automated decision making. That will be interesting to see where that goes. Don't go through this list in any detail, but these are all the new technology enablers that we've got inside the hospital, and each one of those introduce digital transformation. We have 17 telehealth projects running at the moment, and each one of those introduce some form of a transformational change the way that clinical services are being delivered. We've mentioned cyber security and data. I'll just pose this question to you that I don't know the last time I read our balance sheet, but if you read a balance sheet and we are so paranoid about data and securing data, why isn't data on our balance sheet? If it's worth the amount of money that we think it is, $300, $200 per data patient record, and you've got 1 million patient record, surely there should be some recognition of that. And when you get it onto the balance sheet, it actually means some value to the business. We put our buildings on there, we put our equipment on there, but we don't put data on there, and yet we're absolutely paranoid about securing data. Question that you can ask yourselves. So just wrapping up a couple of the cute, cool sort of technologies, if you like. Over here we've got hugs and kisses, so we've got mum with a badge on. We've got the baby with the badge on. It's linked to our security system, it's linked to our doors. Mum can't go without the baby can't be lost, if you like, in the system. And that's, as I said, linked real time to our platform systems, our architecture and our security. We've got automated guided vehicles. We've got 11 of these, and they find their way through the hospital, and they carry a variety of goods. They work on our Wi-Fi system. It's leveraged across our hospital, and they are extremely smart. They've got their own lifts. They find their way into the lift. They find their way out of the lift, and off they go. So really, just in parting words, close out slide. I think from a CIO viewpoint that you need to be brave and bold, take some risks. You need to be really flexible because things change quite often. Creating a culture of transformation is not really difficult, but from my viewpoint, sometimes I put the foot to the accelerator and we speed up, and other times I've got to put the hand on the handbrake to slow them down. And walking around with our CEO, he's got about 20 ideas out of the HIMSS APAC 2019, so it's about time, I think, to put the handbrake on the CEO just a little bit. We don't want to work and run too hard. But workforce is important. It's okay to go slow, but if we get it right, and we need to be able to evolve. I think it was Kenny said before that nurses are good to work with. I think nurses do hold the key, but clinicians and doctors are very important, and at the end of the day, they're probably the most important. If they're dissatisfied with the system, then it's going to be very hard to get any more change. Wherever we can, we optimise and we leverage system. We don't duplicate. We stick to standards. We focus on our data. And I guess just finishing up, last stop point, have fun and smile, and the sun comes up tomorrow and everything will be okay. Thank you.